Hello again. Talk to almost anybody in this country today, even those who were gung-ho about the restrictions on civil liberty which became known as lockdowns, and you will not find it easy to get hold of somebody who is still as enthusiastic about lockdowns as they were 3 years ago. There's a sense of embarrassment among many ordinary people that they could have supported such an idea at the time, and they certainly wouldn't go along with it again. This is understandable, of course. In the description to this video, I give the latest government figures for deaths in England and Wales in week ending June 17th this year. That is to say, 11 days ago. We see that deaths were above the 5-year average in all settings. Private homes, 427 more than usual. Hospitals, 326 above the 5-year average. Care homes, 174 excess deaths, and 82 excess deaths in other settings. That means that in the most recent week for which we have records, over 1,000 people more than usual died in England and Wales. This is odd because after a major pandemic with many deaths of the old and vulnerable, you would expect the death rate in the country to fall rather than rise because many people have died prematurely. Those 1,000 extra deaths in the week ending June the 17th are from people who couldn't get their cancer diagnosed early enough, or who developed diabetes or had heart trouble which nobody noticed, and so on. I know precisely how this works because I have a respiratory problem for which I receive an annual checkup, or I'm supposed to receive an annual checkup. I had the last one earlier this week. Over the telephone. The nurse practitioner asked me my weight and so on, and then asked if I thought that my pulse was normal. She was actually checking for a deterioration of a chronic and serious disorder without actually seeing me. I found this amusing, but of course it's just the kind of thing which is bound to lead to excess deaths in the long run. It is sometimes said that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. By this definition, I'm guessing that most of us would classify former Health Secretary Matt Hancock as being quite mad. Giving evidence at the COVID inquiry, he expressed the view that if there was another pandemic, then Britain should, and I quote, be able to take action, lockdown action if necessary, that is wider, earlier, more stringent than feels comfortable at the time. I don't think I need to give a link to this because it's all over the newspapers this morning. There is something quite terrifying about this, and a man who was health secretary for 3 years should have learnt nothing at all from the COVID business. Every day now we see new evidence of how disastrous the lockdowns were, from the massive increase in eating disorders among adolescent girls to the harm inflicted on children's education, and of course the fact that long after the epidemic, over 1,000 more people a week than usual are dying in this country. How can anybody not see what a dreadful business it all was? I said that even those who were keenest about lockdowns and used to talk of doing the right thing in that awful sanctimonious way have now changed their minds about lockdowns, but they themselves do not quite put it like that. I've yet to meet anybody who says openly, at the time I thought lockdowns were a good idea, but I've been proved wrong. Instead, they rewrite their personal history and claim always to have had reservations about the policy. I expect that other viewers might have noticed the same thing among their friends. It's difficult to find anybody who now says that they were really in favour of lockdowns. I don't really blame Hancock, though, for the line he is taking. I've heard it suggested that his actions during the pandemic were criminal and that he shares responsibility for all those thousands of excess deaths that we're now seeing each month. I've even seen the idea floated that he ought to stand trial as though he was some kind of war criminal. Given all that, I suppose that his best strategy is to double down on what he did and to claim that it was a good idea all along, but that we should have done it earlier and harder.